Hello guys and welcome to my channel The Bio Guru, where science becomes sick. In today's video we will be learning about anaerobic respiration in mammals. You can also check out my previous videos on glycolysis, the link reaction and the Krebs cycle. With that being said, let's move on with today's lesson, which is anaerobic respiration in mammals. Now, before starting today's lesson, you should know that only glycolysis occurs during anaerobic respiration in mammals. This means that the link reaction does not occur, the Krebs cycle does not occur, and even another stage of respiration which we have not discussed yet, which is oxidative phosphorylation, does not occur. So if only glycolysis occurs during anaerobic respiration in mammals, it implies the fact that during anaerobic respiration, 2 ATP molecules are produced per glucose molecule by substrate-linked phosphorylation. Now I have explained the entire mechanism of glycolysis in one of my previous videos. So in order to get a better understanding of glycolysis, please check out that video. Now that you know the basic facts about anaerobic respiration in mammals, let's move on to the real lesson. So, after glycolysis has occurred in the cytoplasm of the cell, you should be knowing that reduced NAD is produced as a result of glycolysis. Now, what happens in anaerobic respiration is that this reduced NAD releases the hydrogen it has captured previously. So according to chemistry, whenever a compound releases or loses hydrogen, it is said to be oxidized. Therefore, when NADH releases hydrogen, it becomes oxidized and forms NAD+. In other words, we can say NAD is regenerated because the original form of the NAD coenzyme, which is NAD+, is produced as a result of the oxidation of reduced NAD or NADH. So why exactly is the regeneration of NAD necessary? This is because if NAD was not regenerated, then the cell would lose its supply of NAD available, and as a result, glycolysis will stop. Now, if glycolysis stops, then ATP production will be completely inhibited because, as I mentioned at the start, during anaerobic respiration, glycolysis is the only way in which you can produce ATP. Now, during aerobic respiration, for example, you could produce ATP by so many ways, such as glycolysis or the Krebs cycle or even oxidative phosphorylation. But in anaerobic respiration, the only way of producing ATP is glycolysis. So you need to ensure that glycolysis keeps on continuing, and as a result of that, NAD needs to be regenerated. So in short, I can say NAD is regenerated so that it allows glycolysis to continue. Because during anaerobic respiration, only glycolysis occurs, and its inhibition would mean that ATP synthesis would not be possible. Now that you know why the regeneration of NAD coenzyme is necessary, let's look at what happens to the hydrogen released by reduced NAD. So the released hydrogen cannot exist on its own, and therefore it is accepted by pyruvate, which is also produced from glycolysis. So once again, looking back at chemistry, whenever a compound accepts or gains hydrogen, it becomes reduced. So as a result, when pyruvate accepts the hydrogen released by reduced NAD, it becomes reduced to form a compound called lactate or lactic acid. And the conversion of pyruvate to lactic acid is catalyzed by an enzyme known as lactate dehydrogenase. So to repeat what I just said, pyruvate accepts hydrogen released by NADH or reduced NAD to form lactate or lactic acid, and this conversion is catalyzed by lactate dehydrogenase. Alright, so whatever I just said until the formation of lactate or lactic acid occurs in the cytoplasm or cytosol of the cell. However, what I'm going to be saying from now onwards occurs in the liver and not the cytoplasm. So in the liver, what happens is this lactate or lactic acid is converted back into pyruvate from which it was formed by combining lactate with extra oxygen, which we call as the oxygen debt, along with the help of some enzymes. Now, what exactly is this oxygen debt? Let me teach that to you using a very familiar example. Now let's say you exercised vigorously, and after that intense exercise or workout, you would be panting and gulping copious amounts of air, taking in more oxygen than you would usually do when you are at a resting position. And that extra or excess oxygen that you inhale is called the oxygen debt. So now that you know what oxygen debt is, let me tell you the process once again. So lactate or lactic acid is combined with the extra oxygen, which we call as the oxygen debt, in order to regenerate pyruvate, and during this process the aid of some enzymes is also used. You do not need to know the names of these enzymes, you just need to know that many enzyme catalyzed reactions are involved in the regeneration of pyruvate from lactate or lactic acid. So the pyruvate regenerated can be converted to glucose or glycogen and stored, or else it can take part in anaerobic respiration to accept the hydrogen released by reduced NAD. Now you might be wondering as to why we need to regenerate pyruvate and why cannot we leave lactate or lactic acid on its own. Well, let me answer that question of yours. So why exactly is the regeneration of pyruvate necessary? Well, that's mainly because of two main reasons. One is because lactate or lactic acid, as the name suggests, is an acidic substance. And as you should know, acids have a very low pH. Now the pH of the blood is usually neutral or slightly alkaline. However, if lactic acid is left on its own in the blood, then it can lower the pH of the blood, which can result in several adverse consequences such as the denaturation of enzymes. And therefore, in order to avoid such negative effects, we remove lactate from the blood by converting it back to pyruvate. And the second reason is to reoxygenate hemoglobin. Now let me explain the second reason in detail to you all. Now for example, if you are, let's say, exercising, then the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen decreases because oxygen is being delivered to cells such as the muscle cells, which are actively respiring. But after exercise, there are still other tissues and organs which also need oxygen, and their demand or their need for oxygen will not be satisfied if all the hemoglobin is deprived of oxygen. Now basically, if you are going for a jog, let's say, although you might feel that you are using only your hands and legs to perform the activity, there are other organs such as the brain which are continuously working. So oxygen needs to be delivered to other tissues and organs as well in order to ensure their healthy functioning. Therefore, we use this extra oxygen or the oxygen debt that is needed for the conversion of lactate to pyruvate in order to reoxygenate hemoglobin and increase its percentage saturation of oxygen so that oxygen can be delivered to all the cells or tissues or organs it is required. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you all were benefited from today's lesson, and if you were, then please make sure to like, share and subscribe. Thank you all for watching this video, and see you all soon with another lesson. Bye.